everybody, and happy Pride. Welcome to Mind, Body, and Pride. My name is Joel Relampagos. I am a motivational speaker and television executive producer. A majority of my work has been with NBC's The Biggest Loser. I'm also the founder of a brand new empowerment program called Change Your Algorithm, which is open here in Los Angeles as well as online. Now, we put together this virtual workshop to help you better your mental and physical health, which is something we all need, especially during this time of uncertainty. This workshop is going to be broken down into 3 parts: mind, body, and you guessed it, pride. And since we're all in this together, I've invited a very dear friend of mine who's going to be zooming in, and he's going to help us strengthen our minds as well as our bodies. He's been a fitness ambassador for over a decade. He's also the owner of Indigo Fitness, which is a holistic training studio here in Los Angeles, California. Everybody say hello to Seth G, or as I know him, Trainer Seth. What's going on, Seth?
Hi, thanks Joel for that beautiful introduction. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am hanging in there. I think that's probably the best bet to say right now. I had a really awesome weekend. We celebrated All Black Lives Matter, so I feel good about that. I also feel really good about the recent decision in the Supreme Court, right? The Civil Rights Act of 1964 came through. People can no longer be, discriminated based on sexual orientation or gender identity. So that was a really big win for the trans community. So happy Pride.
And to our pleasant surprise, conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, right, led the way in protecting the LGBTQIA community from workplace discrimination. But the truth is, the fight for equality is always 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. For example, there came bad news. The current administration recently erased protections for transgender patients against discrimination by doctors, health insurance, and hospitals.
It's really sad. And it's also sad the timing of it. It was the 4-year anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting. And also it's really sad because there was several deaths that a lot of people didn't know about. Dominique Fells, Raya Milton, who both their bodies were found the week prior to this, 2 transgender Black women, which was really, really devastating.
And needless to say, we're all processing the senseless killings of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd in Minneapolis, and Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta, and the social unrest that has risen from these unfortunate events that, bring so many people enraged.
An injustice towards one of us is an injustice towards us all. So we still have a lot of work to do, in that sense.
Which is something we're going to address later in this workshop, 100%. All right, so let's start by talking about how we can better take care of our mental health. It goes without saying that COVID-19 has affected our mental health, every single person. And so I want to ask you, Seth, how has COVID-19 impacted you mentally?
When I had to close my studio, it was really mentally and emotionally challenging, not just for me, but also for my employees. And then for me thinking about how I'm going to have employees, But I knew I had to do something to kind of regain some control when everything went down back in March, which is so crazy to say that was 3 months ago. It seems like 85 years ago. But one of the biggest things, or the main things that I had to solve, or problems that I had to solve, was how I could continue engaging with our members. Because, we are a gym, but we're kind of like a community center. And we have a really big community of people who, they want to get their sweat on, they want to feel good, but they also just enjoy coming in and seeing some of the same regulars. So I was like, okay, how can we do this? And it was through Zoom workouts, but also then a streaming workout service that I had to bang together really quick. Luckily, some of the amazing community members of Indigo work in film, work in editing. So they all kind of came together, all women, by the way, which was really amazing that all of these women were able to help me and to make this really cool product.
Okay, so my question is, how did you transition from this feeling of helplessness to regaining a sense of control?
Right when Corona hit, I was writing down 3 goals every single day. and I would just write the date on like notes in iPhone. Your phone is the first thing you grab, right, in the morning. So I would just do this right from my bed. I'm like, 3 things that I want to accomplish. And, I tried to make one of them like somewhat spiritual or self helping, whether it be like meditate, or sometimes I'll like pull a tarot card and look into that and see what insight this could be. So not always just business stuff. I always would try to make something, towards the gym or for my client or something like that. But that just helped me kind of not only feel like days were days when they started to all blend in with each other, but also that I was being as productive as possible. And some days I wouldn't get to everything, and that's okay. And it was realizing that we have to be kind of easy on ourselves. That was also another really big stage, I would say, in all this, is to go easy on yourself.
The other challenging part, of course, is how to maintain our mental health. A lot of people forget that, we go to the gym to take care of our bodies, we eat right to take care of our bodies, but we also have to take care of our minds. And we got to continue to take care of our minds.
I mean, what about you? What is kind of your process? You're the guru about all this, right? About keeping yourself mentally centered.
Here's what I like to do, and here's what I suggest to all of you watching, is that when we go into a state of fear or uncertainty, our minds start to create stories. And as human beings, we tend to confuse what is real versus what is self-created. Actually sit down and understand what are the facts versus what are the fables your mind has told. Because the mind, when it goes into fear or anxiety mode, starts to become a horror film, right? And so it's important to take a step back and understand that the horror film is not real. And so I want you to actually just look at the facts. And the only thing that you should be responding to is the facts, not the make-believe horror movie that your mind likes to present itself. Like Martin Luther King once said, only focus on the next step. Don't look at the entire staircase, just focus on the next step. Because I think a lot of us think that the staircase is so daunting and there's 2,000 steps, but truthfully, it's actually not even that daunting. We just like to think that it is. Once again, we don't know what the future entails, so just focus on what is the next fact and then respond to that accordingly. And another thing I like to do when you find yourself getting in anxiety or fear mode is just sit down and do something called box breathing, which is you sit, you get really comfortable, you close your eyes. So inhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold it again for 4 seconds. That's the box breathing. And when you do that, you'll have a little bit more of a clarity, and so that way you can respond to the facts and not the fables. And another thing that I want to suggest for all of you watching is to make sure that you live informed, not in fear. There is a lot of bad news in the media, in social media. People are talking about lots of things, so it's easy for us to get stressed out. And so take what you watch in portions the same way that it's healthy to eat in portions. Make sure that when you're watching the news, you just get the facts, because if you reach the point where you're getting too full in terms of stress, fear, paranoia, and anxiety, then you're not just living informed anymore, you're living in fear. Because at a certain point, you're gonna be wasting your time and energy on making your mental health worse, when in fact, we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to go the other way. We're trying to help you out here. So what I want people to know that are watching is that I created a brand new empowerment program called Change Your Algorithm. And what it is that it is an environment for free therapy. Yes, free therapy. And we opened our doors in Los Angeles, here in the AT Center, and we also offer multiple classes online. So we need to better our thoughts, and Change Your Algorithm right here is here to help. And like I said, it's 100% free. All right, so Seth, now let's talk about how we can better manage our physical health.
Yeah, so obviously physical activity does not just benefit our bodies. I think that's probably why I work out so much, because I find it like a moving meditation almost. It helps me kind of just process everything that's happening. And it can usually be like an hour to sometimes like 2 hours a day that I just will try to disconnect and process things like through physical exertion, through my breath, through like mind to muscle contact. But I also know, like on the mental note, it's probably really stressful for a lot of people right now, as we are kind of like on the other end, hopefully, knock on all the wood, of coronavirus. So gyms are starting to open up. I mean, I know personally, I'm figuring out my next steps, and I'm even very torn. because, having a platform like this, you need to know the difference between running a business, but also keeping people safe. So I understand that even though gyms are opening, it's not always an option for many to go there right now. So I think other than going outside, there's a lot of stuff that you can do at home. And it's not even about like a long workout. I know I just said I sometimes go to the gym for an hour to 2 hours. That's because I have the luxury of owning a gym, but that's not always a possibility. So sometimes it's just about doing maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something in your home where you feel safe, and you don't even need that much equipment. Yeah. So Joel, as a motivational speaker, what do you think what are some steps you think that we can take?
The tip that I have to stay motivated when it comes to exercising or even in life in general is when you wake up, don't say you have to do things, say you get to do things. Remember to be grateful. So you get to go outside and you get to go hiking. You get to walk your dog or go running with your dog. Don't just get up and say, oh man, there's a virus out there, everything's falling apart. Like, you get to do these things, right? Remember that you were alive and you get to actually experience all of these things. Life isn't canceled, okay? Life is not canceled. You get to still live your life with purpose. All right, so Seth, when you were interviewed by the gay wedding blog Men's Vows, you mentioned that your top 3 exercises were squats, pull-ups, and bench, right? In that order?
Absolutely.
All right, so why are these the top 3 workouts that you recommend to these guys watching?
I'm just going to preface this all, but this was before we even knew what COVID-19 was. So those are going to change a little bit. And I'm going to still say a squat is one of the best exercises that anyone can do. It not only just tightens your butt and feels good, but it also is going to be burning more calories because they're larger muscle groups when you're using your legs. Another one is a push-up instead of a bench press, because we don't all have access to a bench or even dumbbells. So those are going to be activating the same muscles, which I'll show you in a second, that you'd be doing during a bench. And then a pull-up, obviously, if you can do one, it is amazing. You know how hard it is. I remember when we used to train, you used to love them. You used to just say, Seth, can we do pull-ups the entire hour? Yeah, he never said that, but that's okay. So I'm going to show you guys a different exercise that you can do instead of a pull-up, which is going to be activating not only just back muscles, but also some core muscles too. So it's going to be called a Superman or Superwoman. All right. So without further ado, let me show you these 3 exercises, okay? And actually, you're going to need 0 equipment for it. So the first and foremost, good old-fashioned squat, right? So I'm going to show you some good technique for that. I'm going to do this from the side because a really big component of a perfect squat is making sure your knees are going in the right direction. So first and foremost, my feet are just a little bit wider than hips, okay? I have a nice strong stance, and now I'm going to start coming all the way down, okay? Now notice how my back is nice and flat, my abs are engaged, and my knees are not going forward. I'm actually reaching my hips back. So you're going to come all the way up into that, squeeze the glutes at the top. Same thing, let me show you again, all the way down, all the way up. So just start to work on that and build up that baseline. Now, if you want to make it a little more challenging, I would say try to do some holds at the bottom. So you can come down here and maybe hold it for 1, 2, and then come all the way up. Maybe you make it a little bit longer if it starts to get easier. You can also do things like pulses at the bottom. And then if you're more advanced, if this squat feels really good, you could do, for instance, 30 seconds of a squat, maybe 30 seconds of a hold right here, and then 30 seconds of a little jump. And that's really going to ignite your legs and work both the quads, glutes, and the hamstrings. It's going to work everything. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is a push-up, which is one of the best upper body workouts that you can do. So can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so I'm going to start off just right here, okay? My hands are just wider than my shoulders. I'm in a plank position. My abs are drawn in, and my shoulder blades aren't rounded, okay? They're nice and neutral. So I'm going to come down to about 90 degrees. And then exhale is a really good thing to remember when you exert. So I'm going to come down, big inhale, and then exhale, press up. Now I know a lot of you are thinking like, I can't do that for a minute, and that's okay. So we work up to that, right? So let's come to our knees, and we can do a different variation, still keeping those elbows out to the side all the way down, all the way up. And so a really good goal, I would say, and also it's going to be pretty challenging, especially if you repeat this like 3 times, is try to do a minute of push-ups. Even if it means you're holding it right at the top for a few seconds, you're still going to be engaging your shoulders and your abs during that movement. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, in lieu of having a pull-up bar or potentially not being able to do a pull-up, is actually going to be a lat extension or a Superman or Superwoman. Okay, so we're going to come down. I would suggest to have a mat for this one. I'm just going to do this on the ground. We're going to reach our arms all the way out and just first and foremost, start off with this extension, okay? I'm going to be looking forward because you want a nice neutral neck, chin is tucked under, all the way up, all the way down, okay? Now, if this is too easy or if you need more of a challenge, you can pick those legs up. So that's going to be engaging the rector spinae muscles, the lat muscles, the rhomboids. And then if you're super advanced, if you want to make this a little bit harder for that minute, you can come all the way up, pull it back, squeeze, and then bring it all the way back down, okay? So there's a couple different variations and options. Ideally, if you want just like a 10-minute power workout, you could do 1 minute of squats, 1 minute of push-ups or any variation of that, and then 1 minute of those Superman, Superwomen. Take a few seconds in between, do it 2 more times.
I love that, Seth. For anybody that wants to work out with Seth, as someone who has been his client for years, I absolutely love him. Here's Seth's info. Make sure to check that out. Just because gyms are closed doesn't mean that your body gets to just take a break, you know, stay active, stay motivated, and Seth is certainly here to help you do that. All right, so for our final segment for this workshop, we're going to talk about what pride means to us in this very bizarre year, if you will, of no parade, no live events to attend.
There's a lot of social unrest happening because, and very, rightfully so, because of the consequence of these unfortunate events. So we really need to ask ourselves how we as members of the LGBTQIA+ community can stand in solidarity with the Black community.
So we can truly have an honest conversation, okay, about what's happening right now. We have invited the good friend and colleague of our writer, Dee Diego, to join us for Mind, Body, and Pride. She is a marketing leader for a financial services company headquartered in Minneapolis. Let's say hello to Kim Heslop.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to, just converse with you. Dee let us know that you're also sharing a milestone birthday. And I had to double check that number. Would you like to tell us how old you're turning?
I will be 50 years old.
That is goals right there. You're killing it.
And you don't have the filter that Seth has on either.
I know.
No, this is unfiltered.
Wow. Okay, so now we're gonna go to.
Anyways, so Kim, thanks again. So our first question to you, as a Black woman and a mom who's had to deal with racism your entire life, how are you mentally and emotionally just processing everything?
These past 2 or 3 weeks have probably been some of the toughest weeks that I've had as a parent, and just in reflecting, my son is grown, so he's 25 and he lives in Seattle. And so when something like this happens, it hits home, and Minneapolis is my second home. So it's this has really been in my face, and it's been a reflective moment. And to have to call your son and say, you do remember the protocol that I taught you. You do remember if you get pulled over to put your hands on the wheel, and you remember all this. And he's like, yes, mom, I just want you to be safe. And, and then to be happy is I'm glad you're on quarantine, because hopefully you won't even have to leave the house as much to even think about these things. It's heart-wrenching when you think that you make choices to have a better life for yourself and for your child and for your family. But it's when I get in my car and drive off, and when my son gets in his car and drives off, no one knows that this is a 25-year-old child who was raised in an upper middle class family, who graduated from high school with an associate's degree and a nursing certificate. And so, he's a Black man. that's just the whole thing. So it's been a lot for me to process, and we're getting through it. And I think you kind of remove yourself. You remove yourself from it, and you hear the stories and you kind of glaze over them. But for some reason, current events have just driven it home, and it's been a wake up call. Like, this is bad. It's still going on, and it's bad. And I think that we learn to condition ourselves to just be silent to the racism. You work it into your everyday. You know that when you're going to the store that you need to be able to present yourself well in order to be treated well. And I think that it's time for us to speak up. That shouldn't be the issue. When I want to go to the store and purchase something, I shouldn't have to get dressed just to be treated well. It doesn't make sense, but that is what I've done all my life. That is what I've taught my son. And so you just truly become desensitized to it, and you just do it.
So Kim, the issues that we're now finally acknowledging are systemic racism and inequality. And we describe them as systemic because systems have been institutionalized to uphold the power and privilege of the white community at the expense of the Black community, minorities, and other communities of color. And Kim also works for corporate America, specifically the financial services industry, which is predominantly white, right? Can you share with us a couple of examples on how you think your industry has enabled systemic racism and inequality?
Systemic racism, it's been into effect for so long that people don't even realize that it's there. So it's not as though these companies are intentionally implementing measures to exclude people of color, people of differences. It just happens. And no one thinks about it because those who are running these corporations, and especially in the financial services industry, it's dominated by white males. It just goes back to people look at their references. So if you grow up in a world where you don't have the privileges, the money, the financial means to be an investor or to benefit from even having a bank or benefit from having an additional insurance policy, you're not looking at your financial advisor and thinking, that's what I want to be when I grow up, because you don't have access to that. The average person of color does not have that kind of money to invest, so they never are benefiting from becoming financially savvy, becoming financially sound, securing, that future for their families, setting that legacy for your families. You miss it all. You miss it all. It's very common. It's very common in the Black community for someone to die, and then it's like, gosh, when's the services? It's because, our people aren't aware that they need insurance and that they need to have life insurance and how to get access to life insurance so that if something does happen to you, not only can you cover your burial, you can also leave a legacy for your family through that. So, you have that lack of education, the lack of tools, and the lack of knowledge. So, companies aren't focusing on how can we help the underserved. That's just not, how can we make the underserved our clients? That's not what we talk about. We talk about how can we target the high value clients. That's what we're looking at.
On just maybe more like a slightly optimistic note, because there has been so much change and so much awareness, has there been anything that you've specifically seen that you really appreciate, that you think that people, we were talking about, like, how can we help? Like, what are some things that you're just noticing that are help progressing this current movement right now?
I think the biggest thing that gives me the most hope is when you turn on the TV and you look at the people that are out there protesting and the peaceful protesters, and there's a sea of people that don't look like me out there protesting and fighting for this cause. So it's not just a Black cause that's being driven by Black people. We do have people from all communities chiming in, and we're in unity. And I have people calling me saying, how can I help? what can I do? So that is something that I just have seen that gives me hope. And, and even of late, when you see the Supreme Court ruling for transgender and sexual orientation, when you see something like that, that also lets you know that's going to impact me somewhere down the line as a Black woman as well, because a win for the LGBTQIA community is also a win for the Black community. It is also a win for any minority community, because one thing we have to always remember is the same people that discriminate against me are more than likely the same people that are going to discriminate against you as a person of color, as a gay man. It's all the same. Joel, I know you're an immigrant from the Philippines. You came to this country. You've spent most of your professional career in the entertainment industry. Can you share with me and enlighten me on how you faced racism and inequality in your industry?
Absolutely. And I was fortunate enough to be hired by people that saw more than just my skin color or even my sexual orientation, and becoming an executive producer by people that trusted me and my passions in media. However, the more that I moved up, the less that I saw people of color when it came to high titles and whatnot. And the important lesson here is that in any environment, the workplace included, we need to bring in diversity, and that is people of color, people of different sexual orientations. We're all in this together, and so that is something that we can't oversee anymore.
Thank you. And Seth, what about you? You're a gay, white, Jewish male in the fitness industry. What have you seen as far as racism and inequality?
I saw in a lot of companies that there was a specific mold that a lot of companies wanted people to fit, which is so sad to me, because owning a gym, I know that especially with fitness, it's about how you feel comfortable, and that there's not one mold. There's not just one, like having a six-pack and toned arms, that's not the only mold, and that's not a lot of people's goals. So maybe those studios, keep doing your own thing. I'm going to try to open up to as many people as possible, and to as many, not just like shades of skin and identifications, but body types too. So that's one of the things, especially as you would probably think, is a stereotype about LA.
Thank you for sharing your stories, and all of our voices need to be heard during this time of social unrest, and during this time where we can get so much attention and focus, and people are really tuned in. And a lot of people, even though some days it feels like, oh my gosh, no one is getting this, a lot of people really are trying to inform themselves and to figure out what's going on and to understand people. So it's like, we've got the floor. Let's tell people what's going on.
Yes.
Unequivocally, wholeheartedly agree with you, Kim.
So Kim, I have to say, when we were putting this program together, it was originally going to be for Pride, but so many events have happened. And we want to now know just more so. So how can the LGBTQ plus community and other communities of color stand in solidarity with the Black community?
I think the first thing to keep in mind is that we're all in this together. There's strength in numbers, and this is the one time in our lives where we can say more is truly more. So when we're out there and we're exercising our freedoms as Americans, this is our opportunity to speak out, to use our words, and assemble peacefully. Second, as your straight ally, I know that protest and social activism are in the DNA of the LGBTQIA community. Since Pride was started with an uprising in response to a police raid that began early in the morning hours of June 28th, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village 51 years ago. So we definitely need to leverage that mindset. We see what changes come from that, and we need to use it, and we need to run with it. Third, we all need to speak as one voice and have a united message. And that's one thing I have seen. It's like we have different people with different voices giving different messages. And we need to have one united message and we need to be peaceful in what we're doing. We're not going to accomplish anything by hatred and I mean, I can't tell you you should respect me as a Black woman, but I'm spewing all this hatred to you. It doesn't make any sense. So we all need to stand up for the truth. We all need to stand up for what's right, and we all need to do our part. Lastly, I think that a lot of us, and we've probably all been in a situation where someone has said something that just wasn't correct. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't politically correct. We need to call people on it. We need to stand up and we need to speak for what is right. If we're in an environment where someone is saying something negative about another group and we know it's not right, it's not the right thing, we need to say something. We need to correct them. We can't any longer be in a position where I'm listening to someone make fun of someone that is gay or someone that is another minority, and I'm not calling them on it. This is just not the kind of love that we need to show. And we need to just politely correct people. That's not right. That's not the right phrase to use, because you still hear a lot of people saying their derogatory terms that they're calling people. And half the times they don't even know it's derogatory. Like, you can't say that. That's racist. The proper term is. So there's just a lot of education that needs to be put out there, and we're the people to do it.
Thank you so much, Kim. We truly appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you and for sharing your knowledge with everybody that's watching right now. It really means a lot.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think it's an important conversation to have, and we need to continue to have conversations like this. And I want to join you all in making progress, and I want you to join me in making progress, and let's make a change. We have an avenue.
Thank you. Thank you for using this platform and just you and speaking. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, so we've come to the end of this workshop, and so I want to thank you all for allowing us to commemorate Pride with you today. We hope that this workshop has been helpful for your mental and physical health and really just your overall well-being, especially during this time. And we hope that our amazing guest speaker, Kim Heslop, has helped you reflect on the deeper meaning of pride and knowing that pride comes with diversity and equality, and that applies to everybody. All right, so Seth, this has been a meaningful experience. Thank you so much for joining me in this journey. You are amazing. You know how much I love you.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this workshop. This was, like you said, very informative. And honestly, the most, I think, important part about this was with Kim and her sharing her thoughts with us. That was really, really awesome. So finally, as we are all in this together, I do want to share with you some words from our collaborator, Dee Diego. He conceptualized this workshop and served as our writer. So he said, "These challenging times have made us all feeling vulnerable. However, let's keep in mind that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is an intrinsic part of being human. When we show our vulnerability, we acknowledge our truth, and it is through this acknowledgement that we are able to persevere in a crisis and come out of it stronger than ever."
Amen to that, Seth.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We love you.
And once again, thank you so much, guys. And let's all continue to unite to stand up for truth, justice, and equality. Happy Pride.